my gosh. Harriet, how does it feel to be the most popular congresswoman in America?
Well, all I can say is we beat Liz Cheney.
Yeah! War criminal!
Is there a Liz Cheney fan in the house?
Woo!
There's not one. I guess that's it. She can't run for president, so.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and thank you. I want to say this for everyone here at American Fest. You know, this is the largest crowd of patriots in America annually. Thank you for running.
Thank
you for running against this shaking. We appreciate you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody in America who helped us to defeat her and to defeat the Uniparty in Washington, D.C.
I want to share with the crowd, I first met you because you were on the Republican National Committee for a short stint here.
Yes, I was for Wyoming.
Yeah, so we met, immediately sparked, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is maybe the smartest person I've ever met in my life, in the conversation that we had within 5 minutes. But it's so impressive, back to back. I think we have the two most intelligent lawyers within the conservative movement. We have Harriet, who just left stage, and then Congresswoman-elect Harriet Hageman. I am so excited for you to be down there because we need a fighter like you to talk about these land and water issues that you've been fighting for your whole life. Tell us a little bit about some of these issues and why it's so important that we have to fight the Chinese Communist Party.
Absolutely.
And taking over our land.
And I appreciate what you're saying in that regard. I am a water and natural resource and constitutional attorney. I've been practicing law for 33 going on 34 years. And I have been fighting the deep state, the administrative state. I've been fighting against the EPA and its effort to take control of our water and natural resources, our irrigation infrastructure. I've been fighting against the USDA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Forest Service, Department of Education. I can go on and on and on. The reality is that Congress long ago abdicated its responsibility of actually legislating. And they've turned it over to a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that are not accountable to any of us. And we're seeing the outcome of that is we're almost $32 trillion in debt. Wow. And just this morning I was reading about the omnibus spending bill, $1.7 trillion thing, wow. Given a raise or an increase in funding to almost every single federal agency at the expense of every single person in this room. We have to change the dynamic. We have to change the paradigm of what is going on in Washington, D.C. Because the people that you vote for, the people you elect, should be accountable to you, should be answerable to you. We should not empower unelected bureaucrats.
Who live in their imagination.
I mean, you're truly Wyoming blood. You are I mean, everyone jokes about Yellowstone and you know, riding for the brand, but you were like the real life version of Yellowstone. And so
without the words.
Without the bad words. All that. But I mean, look, you are probably, no, without a doubt, the best position to go to Congress and tell these bureaucrats how the world actually works. You know, we don't have enough members of Congress that are actually fighting that good fight. Can you dive a little bit more deeply into this? Like, what is for us that are kind of more simple? I'm not a lawyer. What's the most simple battle that we have to have at Congress to keeping the Chinese Communist Party out of buying up all our land?
Well,
it's not even the CCP. It's not even just the CCP. It's these big corporations and everything else. What can we do to support you, and what can Congress do to actually move the needle and move the ball down the field?
Well, number one, Congress needs to pass a law that foreign countries cannot own real property in the United States. So I'm a fourth-generation Wyomingite. My great-grandfather came to Wyoming in 1879 on the cattle trail from Texas. We now have 6 generations in the state of Wyoming. I have been representing farmers and ranchers and oil and gas companies and irrigation districts and municipalities for years. To give you an idea of how bad the bureaucracy has gotten in the war on the West, and there really is truly a war on the West by these administrative agencies, I had a case one time where a gentleman cleaned out an irrigation ditch on his property. The EPA came in, claimed it was a navigable water of the United States, filed a lawsuit against him for violating the Clean Water Act, and at one point before we went to trial, he was facing penalties of almost $65 million.
Oh my God.
It took us 6 years and a 2-week trial. The jury was out for 2.5 hours and we won. But that's the kind of battle that we have. Just recently in the law firm that I've been working with, I don't know if you all remember the Gold King mine disaster. The EPA came in, blew out the Gold King mine, destroyed the Animas River and the Orange River seen around the world. Happened about 6 years ago. I represented the landowner. They came in and they built a multi-million-dollar water treatment facility on his property, and in 7.5 years they never paid him one dime in rent. It's an unconstitutional taking under the Fifth Amendment, but this is the kind of abuse we have from these administrative agencies. Several years ago, the USDA decided that all livestock producers have to use RFID ear tags, radio frequency identification ear tags, and register their ranches with the federal government. USDA has no legal authority to do that. I sued and I got it stopped. But this goes on every single day. The regulatory burden in this country is $2.1 trillion a year. That is a hidden tax that increases the cost of boots and shoes and microphones and lighting and everything we do. We have an administration right now that has gone to war with the American people. Every policy decision they're making is designed to increase the cost of food, housing, and energy. We as Congress have to block the radical agenda. We have to do everything in our power to protect you, the citizens of the United States.
I think she's an upgrade from Liz Cheney. I don't know. I think we can upgrade a lot more Congress people with individuals like her. So you touched upon this, and I want to dig into this because we don't talk about this enough, and I think people are sheepish to talk about it. And it's weird, honestly. It's a little bit weird. There's a deep state.
There is absolutely a deep state. There is a deep state in almost every single agency that we have. Again, when you look at what is happening, let's talk about the United States Forest Service. Our forests are being devastated by the horrible policies coming out of Washington, D.C. They're burning our forests to the ground. The pine beetle outbreak has been devastating, all of which can be controlled. But the Forest Service has made the decision that they are not going to protect the forest for the purpose for which they were created, which was a continuous supply of water and a continuous supply of timber. They're not in the Department of Interior, they're within the Department of Agriculture because they were always supposed to be managed as a commodity, but that isn't what they do. So then we have to fight nonstop against agencies such as the U.S. Forest Service to actually carry out the mission for which they were created. We need to dramatically cut the budgets of every single one of these agencies and take power out of Washington, D.C. It needs to return to the states.
I'll tell you. You and I share something because I'm not from your state, but I'm a 7th generation Arizonan, and my great grandfather was a logger. And he was a logger in the time period that the EPA came in and basically shut everything down. And that just doesn't hurt, that hurts everybody, and it hurts the tribal communities as well. The tribal communities, once upon a time, were big in that space, and now they've been basically told that they shouldn't do any of that work because the federal government has told them to do that. And that's wrong. So, I mean, look, what do you think your approach is going to be into carving out the deep state and ripping them out one by one as you go to Washington, D.C., periodically from Wyoming?
There's a couple of my earliest priorities. Number one will be a very simple bill that for any regulation or guidance document that comes out of an agency that has an impact of $100 million, it cannot go into effect until and unless it is approved by Congress. Again, putting Congress back in control. Very simple fix.
Easy.
Very simple fix. That RFID ear tag requirement, according to the USDA, had a price tag to our livestock industry of $2 billion.
Whoa.
And it was mandated in a 2-page document that was posted on a website. So
That's sick.
it never went through the administrative process at all. It was literally a guidance document, which was brings me to my next two bills that I want to run. In October of 2019, President Trump issued 2 executive orders that were 2 of the very best executive orders ever issued by a president. And what they did is they required all agencies to disclose their guidance documents, their informal rulemaking, and all of that. And then they also had to state that none of it had the force and effect of law. Because by law, they're not supposed to. If they don't go through the Administrative Act process, then they are not supposed to have any force and effect of law. Well, President Trump understood how these guidance documents are being used by these agencies, and he put a stop to them. That was one of the very first things that Joe Biden repealed in January of 2021 when he took office. That tells you how important these executive orders are. I want to take those 2 executive orders and I want to turn them into statutes.
Wow. I love that. Now we know why they hated Donald Trump so much, right?
That was a very important, it was one of the most important reforms that we've had in the administrative state in 50 to 60 years. It was fantastic what he did. I've got those in my briefcase right now. I'm working on a bill. But those are the kinds of things that we have to do if we're going to rein in this administrative state and return power to the people of this country.
Love that. We're talking about this, and I'm inspired by people like you, and we're lucky because I think a lot of times we get kind of sideways with Congress, and there's not a lot of congressmen and congresswomen that we actually respect and like. But I really like you.
Thank you.
And but that doesn't mean we're not going to hold you accountable. So
accountability is the key. This is a government of, by, and for the people. That's what Harriet was just saying. And that is why what this administration is doing in its very existence is unconstitutional, because it is attempting to hurt with the energy policy, for example. They're adopting and enforcing an energy policy that is contrary to the interests of every single person in this room. How do you have a government of, by, and for the people when the government itself is adopting policies that are designed to hurt you? That makes no sense, and I believe that it's absolutely unconstitutional.
So let's talk about something that they brought up. This is a total curveball here, so I apologize. Ranked choice voting.
Disaster. Disaster. We lost Alaska in one election cycle. Ranked choice voting, number 1, is unconstitutional because it disenfranchises people from voting. It is not one person, one vote, and it is also a way that they can manipulate and do exactly what they did in Alaska and these other states. We have to fight ranked choice voting with everything that we have. They turned Alaska blue in one election cycle. The Democrats now have the House and the Senate and the lone congressional seat because of ranked choice voting. We have Lisa Murkowski returning to the Senate because of ranked choice voting.
She's a Democrat.
She's a Democrat.
She's a Democrat. I mean, look, at this point, they would have loved, I'm sure, to institute this in Wyoming ahead of your election. Thank goodness they didn't, because they would have tried to do the same thing to you that they just did to Kelly in Alaska.
So in our race, we have what's called an open primary, where Democrats can vote in the Republican primary. They just have to change party for the day.
Boo.
And
so terrible.
For our race, Liz Cheney got 48,000 votes. I received about 113,000. She received 48,000, but we suspect 30, 35, even as many as 40,000 of her votes were Democrats.
So all of them were Democrats.
They were all Democrats.
So you walk around Wyoming and like nobody likes Liz Cheney at this point.
Nobody likes Liz Cheney.
I love that. I need to spend more time in Wyoming. I want to hang out with you in Wyoming. You can do that. Well, before we go here, I mean, why don't you leave us with some of your vision? I wanted to ask you this, but I don't know if we have time. Who do you admire as maybe one of the great political leaders in American history, or great American leaders? Who do you try to emulate when you think of going to Congress and being everything that you're talking about, fighting the fights that you're planning on fighting?
You know, there are many people that I have a lot of respect for, but I truly believe that everything I'm working for is the citizens of the United States of America. This is the greatest country on earth. This country is based upon the concept of the individual and responsibility, individual freedom. The flip side of responsibility is freedom, and the flip side of responsibility of freedom is responsibility. We're not holding people accountable or responsible, and we're allowing our government to take away our freedom. I work for you. That's all I work for. I'm a public servant. I will work for you. I will represent you. I will do everything in my power to restore the United States of America to the great country that it is, restore your freedom and liberty, and take power out of D.C.
God bless you, Harriet. Thank you so much for being here with us.